Hello, good evening, everyone. How are you? Today is Monday, November 2nd. We are in a whole new month of COVID, and yeah, I don't know what to think about that, but it's time flies when you're having fun. So we're gonna jump right into this episode 21. All right, you ready? Here we go. My guest today has been on Comedy Central's Premium Blend as well as his own half-hour Comedy Central special. He has also been seen on Last Comic Standing, VH1's Best Week Ever, CBS's Late Show with David Letterman, and was the very first stand-up comedian to get a standing ovation on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Please welcome to the Check Drop, Mr. Pete Lee. What's up, Pete?
Chuck. It's so good to see you, man.
How are you, man?
This is great. I'm doing so good. It still does. It's not lost on me that in COVID, it's just nice to see another person. You know, like
Right.
I feel like we're a generation of people going through that have gone through COVID that we will never take for granted human interaction ever again.
Right. Yeah.
It's so wild.
Are you tired of the isolation, like with your
Yeah.
girlfriend, or like you're ready to get out on the road?
Yeah, I miss being on the road so much. I was sick of being on the road forever. You know, I mean, like we were, you and I, we met each other in the college market, and that's, for people that know or don't know, by this point in watching your podcast, I'm sure that you've talked to a lot of guys that have gone and done the college circuit really hard, but that college grind is crazy. You can be in 20 days, you can be in 20 different states, where you can get booked at NACA Nationals and then just be running. You can be making laps around the country, just picking up. It's like a scavenger hunt for laughs and paychecks,
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's kind of where I met. I was trying to think every guest I have on that I know, because there's sometimes I've had guests on that I don't really know in the comedy world. I know who they are, obviously, and I book them. But a lot of times in this side of the fence, you book comedians, but you don't always get to meet them. But with you, I haven't booked you per se that I know of, unless I booked you through Melissa or Sue, your previous agents.
I think I've done a few shows because of you. I think that you you booked some shows for me in conjunction with the college agency back in the day.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that I've seen you in person and gone, thank you for giving me that gig, because I think that there were
maybe some one-nighters or something attached to it too, because I've done some of those. And
I definitely know that there were some gigs that when Roy got really busy, he couldn't do a few things, and then I took his gigs, and that was like, so I mean, literally, you've given me like probably like $10,000 in my life by giving me those gigs. So thank you.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the first time I met you, and my brain could only go far as back as I think we were in Hartford, Connecticut. And I don't know if you were engaged or married at the time.
Yeah.
But your either fiance or wife was there, and I just remember in the hotel lobby, I think it was Hartford, Connecticut, and we just we're getting a pizza. We're getting a pizza, and I don't care how we're getting it. It was like 2 a.m. We're like, hey, calling people, we'll give you $100 if you bring us a pizza right now. And somehow
we were partying that night. We were definitely partying, and we were at that level. Like, I mean, not that you and I drink to the level of drunkenness, Chuck, but we do not do that. But we may or may not have been at the level of drunk where we felt like that pizza could save our lives or directly impact our health the next day. Like, when you're eating pizza and it's not even that it tastes good, you're like, this needs to soak up some of the alcohol. I need to not die of alcohol poisoning because this pepperoni pizza is saving me.
And ironically, I have a lot of those stories with a lot of comedians. There's another one that comes my Baron Vaughn. One time I was in Charleston, South Carolina. So like these, I'm getting triggered.
Yeah,
pizza triggers.
Oh my God, yeah. There have been, I would say almost every NACA, I'm like very good and measured up to my show. Like the nights before my show, I'm like, you know what, I gotta behave. I want to be crisp for that showcase.
Right. Because it could be in the morning or it could be at night. You never know. So
yeah, but I mean, every time I go to a NACA, it's not lost on me that how important it is, like how much money is on the line, not only for me, but for the people that represent me that are there, that, you only get a few people with your
Right.
agency that get to actually showcase at NACA. So I'm always like, all right, you got to crush this and then be a delinquent.
Right. Or if you just eat shit and then you're like, I'm going to eat this whole pizza by myself. And
yeah, exactly.
just wallow in my misery. Like you go after like 8 poets that are like all down and
Yeah.
like how do I follow this shit?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I know that you were there at this one. It was an APCA and it was in like Syracuse, New York. I think
Okay.
you were there. I know Craig from the college agency was there, and he flew out to make a video of me. He was like, "I'm flying to Syracuse. This APCA is going to be so hot that I'm bringing my video camera, and I'm
I've
going
never
to."
said any APCA was so hot.
Yeah.
Sorry, Eric Lambert, if you're listening.
I know. Eric Lambert, you and I have had a lot of wonderful conversations over the years. You know, you're great. I'm not saying anything about APCA, but I will say something about the specific APCA. So I went up at this APCA, and the person before me we didn't know what it was, like a I don't know what you'd call it, like a variety act. You know, this person before me like had a number of talents that she was going to showcase. So
Okay.
she goes out and plays the piano beautifully. I mean, the crowd was moved. This is the act that goes on before you,
Okay.
or that went on before me. And just so people know, when you perform at a NACA or an APCA, you don't have control over what is performing in front of you. It could be another comedian, which is great because it kind of warms up the audience for you. It could be a slam poet. It could be a juggler. It could be a contortionist. It could be anything. Magician.
Yeah. And
you don't know.
And I've seen it all, literally. I've
Mhm.
seen even when you get like, you're like, I've never seen that. Nope. It'll happen.
It'll happen. Yeah.
Juggling
And,
snakes or whatever. Like you never know. So
yeah. And I want to preface this by saying that what's to come, I wanted just people to brace for it, that it's a little shocking, right? So this girl goes up there and she plays the piano, and it's beautiful. And like, it's so moving that like these little NACA, you know, students are like moved to the point of tears almost. Then she stops playing. She turns to the crowd. She grabs a clicker for her screen and she goes, "That was beautiful music, wasn't it?" And everybody just went, "Oh yes, that was so beautiful." And she goes, "Well, now that I've gotten your attention, I want to talk to you about genital mutilation in Africa." And I was like, oh my God. Like, that's the most terrible, saddest thing ever. That and yes, it needs to be discussed. There needs to be a light shine on it.
but not
It's
before
one of
you're
the-
set.
Yeah, it's one of the most worthwhile causes in the world to stop that from happening. But I was like, oh God, what is this? And then she just goes through slide after slide, and she has this like moving, powerful speech about how terrible it is and how she wants to go to college campuses and bring awareness to this so that it will stop, because college students can stop it. And the crowd wasn't like, ah, you know, like whoa. They were like, okay.
Did she go back to the piano afterwards?
No, she never played the piano afterwards. And then I remember there was a comic who was emceeing. So I was like, hey man,
Oh man.
is there any way you can just like do a little bit of time in between hand and just like just warm them back up or something, you know, like, hey, even say like, hey, so that was really heavy, but now we have a comedian. And this comic, God, I don't even remember who it was. He goes up there and he goes, all right, are you guys ready for some comedy? And then he brings me up on stage, and I was like, I think I said something like, you know, like, hey, you guys keep it going for your MC and then keep it going for your last act. Man, I'm a comedian, and I got to say that wasn't funny at all. And like, luckily I got a laugh, and then luckily I like eked a set out of it and got some bookings. But I remember Craig emailing me like a week later going, hey, so do you want that tape? Do you think we should use that tape? And I'm like, no. We should never use that tape.
You should have said from the stage, hey, Craig, stop recording right now. This is useless.
Yeah. Greg, this is what's called not happening.
That's awesome. But I remember you did, you were pretty successful in the NACA market. I think you were. I mean, there's a small handful of comedians that just get it, and I try to teach my roster as well. Like there's an art form to it, right? I mean, there's definitely a way to finesse and work your material and be clean and such. But I think that you were one of those guys who just got it. You made the T-shirts, you passed them out, and you did the callback of like Pete Lee, and like had the T-shirts with that. So I commend you on that. You always did like well on that.
Thank you, Chuck. Yeah, it was kind of explained to me up front before I did my first NACA that these crowds they're not the crowds that you're going to get at a college. These are the people in the booking committee at the college. And, right. I've met some of the coolest people I've ever met in booking community or, the booking committees at college. I don't know why I used to speak for a living and now I hang out.
It's overrated.
my mouth is like, we're not helping you on this one. The booking committees are really cool. I'm saying that, but I would say that there's a general like sensitivity amongst booking committees at colleges that they really want to bring people to the school that will be representative of like the ethics and values of that school. The short way to say that is they don't want to get in trouble. Like right. They don't want to bring somebody there that's going to get their whole committee in trouble and gonna be offensive or whatever. And especially in this day and age, they're really responsible for bringing somebody there that's not triggering at all, unless it's like somebody so famous that they're like, this person's gonna be triggering. So yeah, like
it's weird where that budget range tips the point of scale where, well, we'll let him trigger a little bit because we paid $50,000 for that comedian.
Yeah, right.
I think there is a weird like celebrity level to that aspect. That I've seen. So
that's what's so.
If you're spending $2,000 and you're gonna get a phone call the next day or whatever, if that comic is like really edgy and but yeah, you add a couple zeros
and then they suddenly don't care. That's funny that it if you spend more money, the person will be offensive.
Yeah. So like, a couple years ago when, I don't know if you remember this, but Seinfeld publicly stated that he doesn't do colleges anymore because it's too PC. Did you remember reading that article or hearing about that?
Yeah, that was so stupid because Seinfeld wasn't doing colleges for like 30 years anyway.
I know, and that's what I always counter his statement just for that, and it just didn't make sense to me. It was like, was he just bored that week and wanted to be on the news that he hadn't gotten enough attention in the last month? So I just thought that was weird. First off, he hadn't done schools in a while. You know why? Because they can't afford a $300,000 show. First off, most schools that can't just shell out $250,000 to go bring Mr. Seinfeld, who isn't relative to the 18 to 21-year-old market, anyways. So.
Yeah, no college student was like, "Oh my God, I gotta see Jerry Seinfeld." Right. I've done a lot of shows with Seinfeld around New York where he probably doesn't even know. That he did a show with me necessarily, but I've been on a lot of shows where he pops in, and I would say that like before Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee got on Netflix where everybody could see it and it was visible on a current platform, there were a lot of people that he'd get on stage that they were maybe in a younger age group and they'd be like, "Who is that? Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I heard of that. My parents talk about that all the time.
Oh, that's cool. Like that. That's real. Oh, that's the guy." You know how the buses say Fox 13, 6 p.m. Seinfeld? That's cool. But they have to be like reminded of who he is. But I don't know. One of my friends who does some work with Seinfeld told me that Seinfeld didn't really want to do Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, but he like saw his ticket numbers slipping and he needed to do something that was like a project that he would really like. Something that was interesting to him so that he could stay in the public eye and be relevant. And still have younger fans. And Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee is a really cool show.
Yeah, it was a great concept. I mean,
Mhm.
I still like it too. And again, I agree with you 100%. They're like, hey, you got to. I don't care who you are. Eventually, you got to keep pivoting, right? I mean, even look at Leno. Like he created that, that garage, Leno's Garage or whatever. So I
Mhm.
mean, he's a legend. He doesn't need to ever work ever again. But the creative outlet and the juices keep flowing, right? I mean, as a comedian, that you still want to keep doing this. So
Yeah, you as a like one of my neighbors, I moved into this new neighborhood about, I don't know, 6 months ago. And my one of my new neighbors has become one of my best friends. And he's kind of like a logical businessman type guy. And he goes, so for how much longer do you think you're going to be doing stand up, or do you think that you're going to kind of shift, like level up and produce and direct, and then not have to write the jokes or whatever? And I was like, I understand how your logic based brain would think that, but I'll never stop doing the stand up. Like I have to do the stand up. I've met guys that have stopped doing stand up, and down the road, like they're out at the comedy club, or maybe they're going, yeah, I wish I had the guts to get back on stage. I'm like, you can't ever stop. You just have to keep doing it. Like, even if I do produce or direct or do whatever else in my career, I will be doing stand up alongside of it, not because I want to chase some big dream or be super famous at it, but because my brain can't stop thinking of humor, and I can't stop wanting to share that with audiences.
the outlet. Well, almost every week I ask the comedian that I have on, and I ask that, it's like, do you ever see yourself retiring from comedy? And everybody has said the same thing. Even in the times where you can't even do comedy, really, they're like, no, I will do this until I die. I mean, if there's a stage, I mean, it might be only once or twice a year, but they all say, absolutely, I will be doing stand up, so I'm dead. So I'm like,
Yeah.
shit.
I want to do what Don Rickles did, where Don Rickles had a show 2 weeks before he died.
Yeah,
And
he had shows on the books. Have
shows on the
books. I mean,
yeah,
that's how you want to go. So
I want to do that. I mean, in the pandemic, I've now done stand up 11 times. I've done live stand up to a live crowd 10 times now. And I think 8 of those 10 times were in the last month. Okay. So that's a long time.
Are you in LA or New York right now?
I'm in Los Angeles, okay. Which, New York had a lot more stand up before LA did. LA County is just so on lockdown. It's kind of this way around the country, where if you have liberal leadership, things are on lockdown. Right. If you live in more of a conservative place with like a conservative governor, conservative mayor, it's just open. My brother lives in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and he's like, my brother's a very liberal person. And I'm like, how are things there in COVID? He's like, it's open, man. He's like, we're Sweden. It never stopped. Everything's been open this whole time. And I'm like, that's crazy to me, because we're out here in LA, and we've really been in lockdown. And so I've been doing these shows lately that are like speakeasy shows. It's almost like Prohibition, where comedy is alcohol. And it's a show that's on private land. It's usually back in secluded, like a secluded area where the police couldn't visually see it to go, we got to go in there. And the surprising part about it is that, and it's like a secret show, but the surprising part about it is that they'll actually have like a COVID compliance officer there. They'll be doing social distancing. Everybody will be responsible. They'll be wearing masks. And so it's not like a lawless land. And it's interesting how, even given the people that are going there to risk, possibly getting COVID at a show because they just need to get out and connect with people and laugh, even those people are like, we're still going to do everything we can to not get COVID. So it's cool. So I've been doing some of those. But prior to that, I remember my girlfriend and I were at this outdoor restaurant up in Malibu, and there were like 3 waitresses that were all taking out the trash at the end of the night. And then there was the seagull that was just standing on the edge of the trash, like getting in there. And then they needed to get into that trash can to throw more trash in there. And then the seagull looked at them like, no, not happening. And so I was like, you guys might want to just give those trash bags to the seagull and he can go through it. And then they all laughed at that. And I remember just having 3 people or 4 people, including my girlfriend, laugh at something that was said out of my mouth after not being on stage for forever.
I feel like I just did a set.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. Like I felt that rush, that like feel good feeling of all the dopamine, serotonin that you get from getting a laugh in front of a crowd. And they were like, oh, you're really funny. I was like, oh, thanks. And my girlfriend goes, he's a comedian. He hasn't been on stage forever. He needed this. And like, I really did. I really needed that.
It sounds like Jamie just needs to follow around you with a laugh track then and just turn it on every now and then.
I know. She just needs to, yeah. Yeah, like a 1980s sitcom laugh track.
Just follow you around the whole time.
I would love that. Yeah.
So all right. So what were the other shows? You said you did. They were all out in California.
No, 2 of them were in Ohio. I actually went to the Columbus Zoo in Ohio because Ohio is Ohio is a kind of a mixture of like, we're taking this seriously and we're totally open. And so they had this show at the zoo that was like indoor outdoor, and it was in their like African safari land. So through the back doors of this like open, they had like the doors open or whatever. It's the first time I've ever done a show where a zebra walked up like, what's going on? Like it just like opened up to this African safari land. And I think that
it's like Animal Kingdom down in Florida or something. Like,
and it was literally this little building is like Jack Hanna's Animal Kingdom, where the stage that I was on, Jack Hanna will go do like live animal shows for people because he's based out of that zoo.
Yeah, and he's actually a huge comedy fan because at one time I booked a show there. I think I booked Chad Daniels there. I'm pretty sure of that. So it's all coming back to me now. So, yeah. I remember you doing a promo plug too for that. I guess a seal was talking to you, or you were talking to a seal.
Yeah,
on your Instagram.
Yeah, the seal. I think it might have been a sea lion named Simba, or seal or sea lion. But yeah, they wanted me to do a promo for an event, like a wine event at the zoo. And they were like, can you just do something funny with this seal? And I was like, all right, how about I just say that, like, what's my favorite exhibit at the zoo? Definitely the giraffes. And then the animal trainer pointed to the seal. As soon as I had giraffes, the seal was like, just like it was super upset with me. And it was a fun video. It was great.
You're like, this is where my career is headed.
This is where my career is headed. I've always had a comedy career or comedy act that could be adjacent to animals, or something like that, or like, I don't know, like I do have a like any of my Tonight Show sets, people go like, oh yeah, I showed it to my little kid, they loved it. I'm like, all right. But,
all right, well, let's pivot to that since you brought it up. So yeah, I feel like you were like the new NBC, like late night guy.
Yeah, I'm really lucky.
So awesome that like I feel like you're like, remember when Tommy Johnigan like got like almost every TV spot on Letterman, like right Letterman's last year. I feel like you're the new Jimmy Fallon guy because you've been on there like 3 or 4 times now, right?
Yeah, 5 actually.
5.
Right before quarantine, I did my 5th one. It was actually on Halloween last year on Halloween, which was amazing. But to be on that show on Halloween, there was so many crazy things on there. But yeah, I would have never gotten on that show if Jimmy Fallon didn't come to a comedy club and actually see me in person.
Okay. I was gonna ask if it was that or if Michael Cox had seen you.
Michael Cox was aware of me, but so at the time Michael Cox was given a directive that he needed to put people on it was like their debut, like their late night or television debut. So it was like a big moment, or celebrities. So it was either one or those, and I didn't qualify for either of those because I had been on Letterman, and then I'm obviously not a big celebrity. So I was like, okay, I can't do the show. So I just kept sending him sets, and like I was trying to get on the show real hard. And
Is
then
that a thing? Like if you had done Letterman, that they would kind of frown upon putting you on?
it's not so. I mean, Jimmy Fallon loves David Letterman, so it's not that. It's that they just wanted the. It really was like the excitement of the intro, like this young man coming to the stage is making his television debut.
Got it. Like they
And
want to have first rights type scenario.
they want to have first rights. They want to. They just want it to sound impressive. I think also Jimmy Fallon's a really great guy, and I think he wanted to give people their TV debut. Hey, let's give. Jimmy Fallon has given a lot of people chances. That probably didn't have a chance or weren't looked at before. I know for a fact, if you look at all the comedians that are on there, a lot of them aren't straight white male comics like myself. Like he's had a lot of diverse comedians that, Comedy Central has previously looked them over, other networks have looked them over, and Jimmy Fallon has gone, get me that, let's give some people some opportunities that have been previously looked over. So, I really respected, the idea that he wanted to put, up people on TV that, hadn't really gotten a chance, also had never gotten a chance to be on TV, and then also famous people. So I knew that I didn't fit into any of those categories, but I was just convinced that if Jimmy Fallon saw me, I thought that he'd like me. So I was like, that's the only chance. So my former manager, Dave Kimowitz, he was friends with Jimmy Fallon, and then Dave also booked the Tonight Show for a short period of time, so he knew people there. So Dave was like, hey, Jimmy, you got to come to the stand. You got to see this guy. So they were holding a Tonight Show showcase. I wasn't a part of it. I get an email from them saying like, hey, you're on this showcase. And I was put on the showcase kind of like, we need a 10th guy. Like
spot filler.
I kind of was like a seat filler at the Oscars. And then not only did I have to, was I on the lineup, but Roy Wood Jr., our beloved Roy Wood Jr., Roy was doing the Tonight Show the next day. So he was doing it on Monday. And we both know how crazy of a killer Roy Wood Jr. is on stage. I mean, you can't follow Roy, much less Roy Wood Jr., who's doing his Tonight Show debut set.
Right. Already polished, just ready to go.
Super polished. So I got to go up after Roy Wood Jr. at this thing. And luckily the crowd sucked. Like the MC ate shit so badly. The next comic went up, just panicked and went blue. And then Roy went up, and Roy just crushed. And like the trust of the crowd was fully broken. They did not believe in the show anymore because the first two guys were so bad. And then Roy went up and he got their trust again. And I was like, all right, I think I can go up there. And if I get them right away, this is going to be a good set. And so I just rode the wave that Roy created, and I crushed. And mid set, Jimmy Fallon stands up. I had this joke where I said, I hate conflict. I never want to offend anybody. Like the other day, this guy sneezed and I wanted to say, bless you. But instead I go, happy holidays. And Jimmy Fallon stands up mid set and he goes, yes. He goes, I love this guy. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is this?
Is he drunk?
Could have been. I don't know. Possibly. I'm not sure.
But that's cool that he comes out and watches, though. I mean, what other late night host goes out and like recruits talent like that?
Yeah,
they pay people to do that. So
yeah, they pay people to do that, and like Jimmy Fallon is just such a man of the people that he was like, yeah, I'm gonna go and check out comics myself. This is great. This is so much fun. And after the show, they immediately invited me on the Tonight Show, and I got to do it the first time, and then I got the first standing ovation of any comedian in his history of doing the show, and then they invited me back a second time, and I'd done it 3 times in 1 year, before I did and then I took a little bit of a break and then did the 4th and 5th one.
Which was the hardest one, the first or the second? Because I'm assuming the second one was like, all right, now I got to prove what I did back there that I can keep being a regular.
Yeah, it did feel like that. The second one was I think I mean, I started like training for that one right after the first one was done. I mean, the next day I woke up and was like, what's my set going to be? And I started going to the comedy clubs. Like I would open every set for however many months that was. I opened every set with that chunk. So I had like tightened it so hard. And then that was the set that ended up going viral, where everything happened for me after that. That was the one with the dresses with pockets bit in it and the
Yeah.
motion sensor syncs bit. And I got so much flack from other comedians for wearing a blue suit. I remember I got to the Comedy Cellar later on that night, and everybody was like, "You wore that on the Tonight Show?" And I'm like, "Trust me, on TV it looks really good." I just knew that it was going to look really. Yeah, I was like, "It's going to pop." And then I got on screen and it popped, and it's, you know, it's. I wish that I could have worn that suit every time. It just really pops.
We could have.
Possibly, yeah. I could be blue suit guy. I could.
Just variations of blue suits or whatever. You could change it up every time.
Yeah, and I chose that suit because I had my opening joke was that I look like the emoji guy that's like I'm trying to get it in frame. The emoji guy that's like, what? And that guy has a blue shirt on. So I was like, oh, I'll wear a blue suit. Yeah. And that's why I chose that blue suit. But
got to stick with the emoji colors, right?
Yeah.
Stay in character. So.
Yeah, that set was the one that really changed my life, because I woke up then. So my friend and brilliant comedian Nikki Glazer, we have a pact that we don't read comments. Okay. And like if a video is released, we never look at the comments, and then we just don't, like, we post and ghost. Like you post something, you don't go back and keep refreshing and going like, how's it doing, and drive yourself crazy that way. Like you just put out content and you chill. And I saw that the Tonight Show had posted my set the night before, like late night, and I saw it before I went to bed, and I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, it's got 100,000 views on it. That's great. And I was like, look at the comments. Nope, don't look at the comments. Do not do that. Nikki's going to be mad at you if you look at those comments. I woke up the next morning because I had a few whiskeys, like to celebrate the set and whatnot. Right. I woke up the next morning.
Well earned.
Well earned, yeah. I woke up the next morning and I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, 7 missed messages and I had a missed call from Nikki Glazer. I was like, what is that? And I checked the message. She's like, look at the comments, look at the views. This is the exception. Oh, okay. And I was like, what? I'm like, did somebody say something really mean? Am I canceled right now? Like, was one of the jokes so offensive that now people are mad at me? I was like, oh no, this is terrible. So I go onto Facebook and I look at it and I'm like, oh my, I was like, 8 million views. Overnight it had 8 million views, which I had never gotten that many views on anything. That's awesome. And then I looked at the comments and all the comments were like really positive, and I just started crying. I was like, what? like I had that like that Susan Lucci moment. Like, they like me. They really like me.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I also remember another a big hurdle in your career. Like, I remember you had gotten, I think it was that you did NACA Nationals one year and then you just killed. Like, I think everybody just wants that one big one that you just like slam dunk. Every year in the NACA world, up until the last couple of years, because NACA doesn't have those windfalls as much as they used to. But I remember like Cristel Alonso got it one year, Roy got it one year, Grant Lyon, Dan Cummins. I can go back every year. Like, hey, that was the guy that had that perfect spot, whether it was opening night MC or whatever. But I remember you had gotten one, and you got that windfall finally, like that well deserved, where like 100+ dates or whatever, and then. I remember you posting and you were like saying, this is not to brag or whatever, but like, for the first time in my life, I'm like debt free or something like that. And I remember I was like, that's what that's for, right? I mean, you have that just slam dunk, and then you've made it. You've earned all the, you get your road stripes. I mean, because God knows in the college market, you're doing all those damn nooners and such that you have earned that money. So yeah, so it's cool that I can see already like the the stepping stones of your career, where like that you're just moving on up the ladder, which is great, man. So
Yeah, I remember that NACA. I booked 187 schools that year, and I don't know if they were all from that NACA or if I did
yeah,
multiple NACAs that year, but it was
yeah.
187 schools. And I remember talking to Roy Wood Jr. and Roy's a guy that I've always looked up to, and he's always got sage words of advice. But I was like, dude, I booked 187 schools, and he goes, yeah, man. He goes, that's going to be a lot of money. He goes, but you got to go do all those shows now.
His line always to the comics that like had that windfall, he always goes up to him afterwards and says, what day did you cry on?
Yeah.
He would always say that, like, what day did you cry on? Mine was day 32 or whatever it was. Because, because you do that. You wake up and every day is a different city. You're hopping on the plane. Again, it all sounds great when you're making that $2,000-$3,000, picking up these checks, and you're like, can't even keep track of your money half the time. You're just trying to get to, all right, where am I at? Terre Haute. All right. And sometimes a lot of times, sorry, being an agent, the routing's not the best, but it works out that somebody wants the 12th and then somebody wants the 13th, so you might have to fly from Sarasota, Florida, to Eugene, Oregon the next day. I mean, that just shit happens, but you do it, and it's a nightmare, but you be careful what you ask for, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's wild because and I always said future me really wants to do that. Or no, current me wants to do that. Future me doesn't want to do that. Like I remember one time, Sue Boxrud, my former agent, formerly with the college, Sue was one of the best in the business. She was like, all right, you're doing 5 days of colleges in a row in North Dakota, and then you have a day off, and then you're in Fargo the next day. She's like, do you want to go do a show down in Florida? And I was like, how much is it? And I think she was like, it's $3,500. And I was like, yes, I definitely want to go do that show. And
on paper, it sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm like, God, it was winter. And I was like, it's going to be so cold in North Dakota. That'll be so cool just to go to Florida for a day. And I flew out of Fargo, flew down to, God, I wish I could remember what school it was. It's a school where like presidential candidates always go to talk there. I can't remember what it's called, but it's just north of Miami. And I remember like getting there. I got an early flight. I got there in time to like sit by the pool, and I was like, oh, isn't this living? I was exhausted. And then, got a nap, went and did the show. But then the next day when I had to fly back to Fargo, there was like a snowstorm coming. I got there like exactly with enough time to get there, not before the hour ahead of the showtime, but before the exact showtime. And so I had to like go into the airport bathroom, like style my hair somehow, brush my teeth, put on deodorant, change from travel pants to jeans so that I'm not wearing sweatpants like every college student in the audience,
Right.
And dash to this college, white knuckling it in a snowstorm,
suitcase in hand, right up to the stage.
Yeah, suitcase in hand, go right there, and then you just have to you got to start the show wherever you're at, And before colleges, I used to have like a pre-show ritual where I'd have to like eat this. It was like OCD, like I got to eat this before the show so that I'm not feeling drowsy. I gotta pee before I go up. I gotta make sure that this and this and this. I gotta have my set list. I have to written it out. I have to know all this stuff. And doing colleges, you had so many times where I was so exhausted and on the verge of a panic attack or crying because I was so tired and hungry from travel and I hadn't eaten that day, or I was living on coffee, and and my anxiety was spiking, and it felt like, I guess emotionally, how it felt like getting on stage some of those days was like I was skydiving and I had all the terror of skydiving and like all that adrenaline. And then somebody just immediately pushed me out onto a stage and was like, do stand up. That's what doing a college tour like that feels like. And it taught me to really adapt to a lot of different situations and not be so precious about comedy and just to roll with things. And that's why I think, I give credit to colleges for me being good on the Tonight Show. You know, I give them all the credit because number one,
different comedy muscle, right?
It's a whole different comedy muscle. You have to be able to do comedy in a way that's real and relatable and not corny or anything like that. Like, it has to be real and honest comedy, but it also can't offend anyone. Or at least the way that you approach a subject has to be from the right direction where people will go, I appreciate that he's talking about that. And wow, I hadn't even thought of it that way. This feels delightful instead of just triggering,
Yeah. And you also got to remember the college market. Those college kids a lot of times they're seeing comedy for the very first time.
Yeah.
Because most people need to be 21 to get in a comedy club. So a lot of these kids are, 18, 19, 20-year-old students who've never even seen comedy. So it's a whole, again, that new comedy muscle. I think comics getting into the college market don't really realize that. And when you think about it, that's, it's a whole new thing of fans that have never seen comedy before. So
yeah, they're seeing comedy for the first time. The venue is never perfect. I shouldn't say never. There are some beautiful theaters that I've performed at. Less than ideal. And yes. I remember after I did the Tonight Show for the first time, one of my friends was like, dude, how did you go out there and just deal with that pressure and do that and that? And I was like, dude, I've done colleges. Like, at the Tonight Show, there wasn't a smoothie maker 8 feet away from the stage that was going like blending up a smoothie while I was trying to get to my punchline. Like, it was the easiest environment in the world to perform.
They're not doing bingo in the back of the room while you're doing your set, or
there's not
live petting zoo, or I'm thinking of all the things that I've actually booked. I had a bingo show the other day.
Exactly. Yeah, there's all sorts of strange stuff that happens at colleges, or you get to a show. Every single person there is excited for the show. And then there's one engineering student in the front row who's doing homework that he's like, I'm not moving. I have all my books laid out. I'm not leaving.
Yeah. And I'm not here to listen to you. So
yeah. And you know that you were just messing up this guy's day by having fun with this crowd.
In a couple of weeks, I have comedian Pat Godwin on, and he has a good story that I had booked him out of college years ago, and same scenario. But not only like the engineering student studying, it was the only person in the entire room. So it was nobody except for this kid, and and I don't know if you know Pat. He's a guitar comic.
Yeah, I love Patty G. Yeah,
yeah.
I love him.
So he was like, "All right, sounds like I'm doing some songs," and he just kind of went into it. And then the advisor would, who was paying him, would walk by every now and then and just see him just playing his guitar in front of this one kid who's not even watching his. And and she's like, kept looking like, "All right, you got 10 more minutes." To do his full hour or whatever. Holy shit. So,
it's oh God, I want to share a story.
We like stories. We're all about stories. Tell me. I
want to make sure that I want to make sure that when I bring up this, that people know that I'm being caring of this group. But I also need you to know that it was a situation that I had to walk through, like a minefield, to make sure that this group of people felt taken care of, is what I want to say.
Got it. I like the intro.
So in Wisconsin, in Wisconsin, they have this really great program for people, who are on the spectrum of being mentally challenged. At community colleges, they have a program where they go to a community college for a year, and they basically prove themselves that they can go somewhere, learn skills. They teach them all the job skills to go out into the community and do trades that are, that give them employment, money, a purpose, things that we all love and things that they deserve. Right.
Right.
So I was booked at this college tour, or part of my college tour was in Wisconsin. And at night I would perform at like Marquette. During the day, I would go perform at one of the technical colleges or community colleges. So I would be in the dorm cafeteria. And this was a stretch of about 2 weeks where 6 out of the 7 days of the week, I'd be in a tech school cafeteria doing a show. So this happened every day. This happened every day for 12 out of 14 days.
You're like, thanks, Sue.
Yeah. And so when I say this, this is just a fact that happened, and it was a situation, that I was in. But, so I would go up on stage and start telling jokes, and the crowd would love it, and we'd be having a lot of fun. And then, specifically, there would be one student or more who had Down syndrome that would see me talking, see me having fun, and they would think, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So they would just come up on stage because I have a friendly vibe. I'm a kind person. I think they looked at
friendly vibe.
Yeah, I think they looked at me like, that person is safe. I'm going to go interact with him. So then I would be on stage and I would be interacting. And, that's where the delicate line is, because, in that moment, I don't want to make any joke or like interview this person in any way that would make them make someone else look at what I'm doing like I'm making fun of them, because I would never do that.
Right.
But also I have to create humor in that moment. So I'm in a giant pickle. You're
walking the line.
I have to walk this line where I, where I'm having fun with them, where they're having fun too. They've also fully come up and interrupted my show, but I can't react to that, and I'm not going to. I just have to roll with it, because the school director is also just standing in the back of the room, and instead of walking up and going, hey guys, you got it, he's doing a show, can you just walk down? 12 out of 14 shows did not happen.
She just watched in the back going, how is he going to handle this one?
Yeah, exactly. like okay, and so I just had fun with them, and I would and I honestly just treated them exactly like they were just exactly my equal. I asked them questions. I asked them how school was. I let them be funny instead of me being funny. Because I don't know if you've ever spent time with anyone with Down syndrome, but a lot of them have really great senses of humor, and they can sense when something's funny. And so just by the grace of God, I had really fun interactions with them that didn't offend anyone. Everyone understood that I wasn't picking on them. And then I would also just do like dance competitions or, whatever, where I'd hold my phone up and I'd be like, what music do you like? What's your favorite song? And then we'd have like dance competitions, and then I'd pick a winner. And I remember calling up Sue every single day going, like, that was great. And I feel like I included, like, it made me feel good because I felt like I included people in a show that previously in comedy probably would not have been included, and they would have been disparaged and make fun of. So I felt great about that. But I also, just knowing that it was going to happen the next day, and there were potential pitfalls, that could have gotten me canceled or whatever, I was just going, like tomorrow is going to be a challenge,
It's taxing, right? I mean, it's just not, it's out of your normal comedy routine. So
yeah. And that's just yet another thing that gives me confidence in entertainment of like, well, if I could handle that situation with tact and respect and kindness and love, I can do anything.
You can change the world.
I can change the world, but like when people are like, oh, I have this audition today, it's 12 pages, and how am I going to go in there and do that?
Yeah.
And it's like, you're going to memorize it and you're going to go in there and do that. Like there's not going to be any odd situation that happens in the room, like a smoothie maker or, the one that I just described, where you're going to have to do things exactly perfectly, otherwise your dream will die.
And even if it does, you probably got enough years of experience to wing it and make it work. I mean, that's what comedy is, right? I mean, even Roy mentioned that like everything he's done in his career got him to where he is on the Daily Show. It's not just one thing; it's just all those things, like prank calls, the colleges, the the driving 800 miles just to do a gig for $50, and all those things just builds that character, and I mean, it's part of the gig, right?
Yeah, I remember Roy's first day ever on the Daily Show. I DVR'd it and I watched it, and I was so Roy just seemed like he was 20 years past being ready for that.
Yeah, I remember he had one bit about Mars and I can't remember it now, but like I just remember it just killed. I was like, first that he got on there the very first day, because not all the correspondents were on that first day. So because you're not guaranteed a spot every day. I mean, sometimes you're only on there twice a week, if that. So, but yeah, he's just he's just one of those good guys. And again, like you're cut of the same cloth, I feel, and you've earned those stripes, and that's why I wanted you on today, so I can just chat with you and be a part of my little podcast here. So,
oh, dude, your podcast is awesome, and I mean, you're always one of the most fun people to hang out with at NACA's, and I remember we were at some NACA, I forget where it was, but it was
the last time it was me, you, and Judson who commented on the here's
oh,
Judson
he did
right there.
All right. Hey, Judson.
Judson Lipley, if anybody's out there listening, he's a really good public speaker. He was the Evolution of Dance guy, if you know what that is. One of the first viral videos of all time. He's a really good guy. But yeah, I remember the three of us, and I think maybe Craig. They were hanging out and drinking, doing something.
Oh yeah, in Columbus, Ohio. Was that in Columbus, Ohio, that we got schnockered?
Yeah. Was that was that this year? Was that in February or the last year?
That was last year in February.
That's right. Yeah, this year was Denver. Sorry. Yeah.
That was the NACA where if you didn't get out right as the last showcase was happening, the snow started, and I got stuck there with my now reps from CAA. They're like a bunch of LA guys, and we got stuck in Columbus, Ohio for like an extra 2 days.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because they're like, what in the hell are we gonna do in Columbus, Ohio? And I was like, oh, you've never been in a Midwest town during a blizzard? We drink. That's what we do. We put on the warmest clothes and we walk down the street and we drink at the bars. And they're like, nobody's gonna be there. I'm like, everyone's gonna be there. Every single person will be at that bar. But,
with all your accolades here, I didn't even get into some of the ones that I wanted to talk to. You were on I Need You to Kill with Chad Daniels and Tom Segura. It's a great movie. If anybody hasn't watched that, go watch that on Amazon Prime. Really great. You guys touring Asia, I believe, right? Is that where you were?
Yeah, we went over and did a comedy tour in Asia right when the comedy scene was starting and developing over there. We went to Singapore, Hong Kong, and Macau.
Yeah, and didn't the comics give you some shit because you didn't go solo? Didn't you bring your wife at the time?
Yeah. Oh god, that was so weird. Like,
it seemed like it was a lot of Chad Daniels and Tom Segura, and then just ripping on you.
Yeah, it was. It was Tom. I now in hindsight, with a lot of things, I wish that I would have gone on that trip solo. I'm divorced from that woman. It's confusing to people because my girlfriend's name is Jamie, and that happens to be the same name as my ex-wife.
I was gonna bring that up and saying, do you have a thing like you have to be Jamie? Do you only search Jamies on like Bumble or?
Yeah, right. Like I only swipe if it's a Jamie. It was so or for just that reason of like, how's Jamie?
Oh, she's great. Like, yeah, and they don't know. They don't know like if you're divorced.
Well, and they both have brown hair, and I don't know if people necessarily like really studied the facial features of of Jamie number one, but there are people that I'll be like, oh yeah, Jamie, right? Like of current Jamie.
Known her for years.
And they're like, yeah, I can start to see it in their face. They're like, is that the same one? Like, is this like on Roseanne where they replaced Darlene with a different Darlene or
Right.
what or whatever?
Well,
Sarah
I was
or
in
whatever.
Montreal, and I think I met your girlfriend for the first time. I guess it was about 3 summers ago,
Uh-huh.
and same thing. I was like, at first, I was like, wait, because I didn't know at that time. Like, wait, that's weird, because that's not the same Jamie.
Yeah,
So,
it's super confusing for people, and the first time that I ever met Jamie, the sequel,
yeah.
yeah, two, her and I were on an airplane. We met on an airplane, and we were like really connecting and really talking and vibing. And I just remember having this hunch that I was going to spend a lot of time with her, and I was like, what's your name, by the way? And she goes, Jamie. And I go, fuck. She goes, why did you say that? And I was like, oh, it's a long story. And I told her the story, and she was
funny.
like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then when we first started dating, I had kind of an aversion to that name, and I was like, yeah, it's just really hard for me to say that name. And she was like, well, you can call me James. And I was like, no, I'm not like, hey, Bill, like I'm not calling you like a masculine man's name.
Steve.
What's up, James? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've really learned to love the name Jamie again. It's
well, you seem happy.
Yeah, I really am. I'm I live out in LA now. I moved out here about 3 years ago, especially during the pandemic. I'm super psyched that I live here. We got the COVID deal of all COVID deals on a house. Like, we're now living in a house that our front living room looks out at the Pacific Ocean.
Oh,
like
nice.
we live on.
Did you buy it?
No, we're renting, but we're probably going to end up buying in this neighborhood. We live in this like cool little community that's in this little bluff bowl by the sea, right on the Pacific Ocean, and it's across the street from one of the best surf spots in the world. Yeah. Like when we get a swell, there are these surfers that they track the surf line stuff all around the world, and about 2 weeks ahead of time that you're going to get a swell. And so you'll be out there surfing, and there'll be people from Australia that will be like, yeah, we flew here, mate. And because we knew there'd be a swell here, best waves in the world. I don't know if that's a good.
Yeah,
Australian.
It was so good. That's why you canceled 2 weeks ago, because you had at the hospital.
Yeah,
you ate it on your surfboard.
Yeah, I'll show.
Yeah, we had to reschedule. So we're glad we got you today. So
yeah, so I'm wearing a compression sock. I don't know if anybody can see I'm wearing like what 85-year-old men wear, and I have this. I still have the wound. You can see right there that's where the wound was and the stitches were. Yeah, I got what's called finned by my surfboard. Nice. And what happened was I was paddling into about an 8-foot wave. And so the wave is coming up behind you, and I'm looking, and you're kind of like looking over your shoulder, spotting where it's at. So you know when to paddle a little bit harder or where you're at. And I see that the wave starts closing out a little bit, which means like, oh, you don't want to catch this wave. So I threw my board. I threw my board out, and I dove back into the wave. Normally you can just kind of like dive through the wave, and they call it like duck diving through the wave.
Yeah. Is this a new activity for you? Like, since you're from obviously Midwest, and and then New York, is this the first time trying the surfing?
Well, I got into surfing pretty hardcore like about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I bought boards, and I would strap them to the roof of my car and take them to the beach and surf in Santa Monica with a friend. And then part of the reason why we wanted to move here is because my girlfriend and I had both gotten into surfing. Prior to that, whenever I'd be in a college town that was like, on the Atlantic side or on the Pacific side, and sort of some sort of a beach town, I would just take a surf lesson, because you always get a free board with a lesson. Yeah. So I just pay like $50, get a lesson. So I've been surfing. I started surfing because of colleges, So I've been surfing for probably like 15 years, but then like really surfing for the last 2, and then like really, really surfing for the last 6 months, where, I feel like I'm good at it. And so like I had just gotten a hard top board with like competition fins and like a really good board to ride waves on, and like really cut and slash on the wave. And I was turning, so I threw my board. My board was supposed to just kind of go wherever, and I was going to dive through the wave. And I've done that a million times. And this time I threw the board flipped over, like, so the fins are sticking up. And then when I turned to dive into the wave just scooped me up, and then it threw me down onto the board, and I went basically leg first into the fin. Ugh. And then the fin prison shanked me, and the fin went underneath.
Take that, Pete Lee.
Yeah. The fin went, somehow it magically like went underneath that front shin muscle that you have. It went in between my two bones, my tibia and fibula, or whatever you pronounce those. And then it stabbed my calf from inside. So I got stabbed from the inside of my leg. And then I'm like a football field and a half out in the ocean, and I'm like bleeding like crazy in a shark bay, and I got to try to get into the land. So every wave I was just like holding my leg and compressing it so that it wasn't, squirting. Like it was like Halloween horror movie style, and like spraying. And I was like, oh Jesus. And so I like body surfed in. On every wave, I would just like body surf as far as I could, and then I would tumble. And then the lifeguards and paramedics got me because I was like screaming for help. And then that wasn't even the bad part. They took me to the hospital. They stitched me up. They were like, "Oh, you're fine. Go on your way." I was like, "Don't you want to like do an X-ray or like see what's going on inside of my leg? Because the inside of my leg hurts really bad." And they were like, "You're fine. Your body will it'll all heal together in the inside."
We
your
got
body
COVID patients we're dealing with. Don't worry about it yourself.
Yeah, Eddie Van Halen that night, he came in. So while I was there getting stitched up, he came in dying. Oh, and wow. There was a big, not that I'm blaming all that happened on Eddie Van Halen, rest in peace, but like they were going to do a CT scan. They were going to do an X-ray. They were going to get me on antibiotics. Then all of a sudden he came in dying, and all of the attention shifted towards Eddie Van Halen. And they were like, "All right, here's your papers. You're on your way." And I was like, "But don't you need to..." Like
an eruption of events happens.
Yeah. I love that.
That's why I'm on this side of events. Not
best guitar solo ever of events. Yeah. And then they just sent me on my way, and the whole week the inside of my leg was just hurting, and it was hurting. And then finally that Sunday it blew up, and it turned out that there were massive blood clots in my leg, that had happened as a result of the trauma. So I had to go back. And now I'm on Xarelto blood thinners, and like it's like crazy. Yeah, I'm an old man. I like my girlfriend and I went to the store. We now live the elderly people. Like we did two things.
Did you get the medicine for me today, honey?
Did you go get my Xareltos? Like I actually said to her today, because we went and voted, and I was like, I hope I don't fall and cut myself because I'm on blood thinners. That's what I said about voting. Like I think I'm a pretty cool guy, and this is my life for the next 2 weeks, being on these blood thinners. But
good story, man.
Yeah, it's crazy, but that's why I had to cancel the last time, and I'm glad that we got to reschedule, and I just got to do the podcast with my leg up on pillows.
Nice, man. Well, let's I guess it's about time to wrap this up, man. We've been talking for an hour, so and I got a text from your girlfriend saying that you got to get your medicine. So,
Yeah.
So Pete, would you like to plug anything on your end? I know you have a podcast as well, Snuggle Storm, I believe.
Yeah, Snuggle Storm podcast. Please check that out. If people want to follow me on social media, I'm at Pete Lee.
Yeah, I got that right there. Twitter,
Yeah.
Pete Lee Twitter at Pete Lee Tweets, and Instagram Pete Lee.
Pete Lee.
What's the story behind the Instagram? Like,
I couldn't get Pete Lee, so I just did Pete Lee. It's the longest Instagram name ever. And if you ever seen like a friend that you know is a friend and you're not objectifying her, but she's got like some bikini pic and you're like, I'm going to be nice and I'm going to like that. If I ever like a bikini pic, like when my girlfriend is scrolling through, it says like liked by Pete Lee. And normally it says liked by like 4 different names, but mine takes up so much real estate that it's the only one. So I just look like a creep.
Yeah. I noticed like PeteLee.com was taken. So you got PeteLee.net.
Yeah, I got PeteLee.net.
You're late to the party. I even looked it up today to see who owns that, and I couldn't tell. It was like hidden. So
there's this British guy that owns it, and he will have that until he dies. He and I got into a feud over it. I politely messaged him and I said, hey, is there any way that I could get PeteLee.com? Can I purchase that from you? Yeah. And he was like, I'm a research scientist, and how dare you think that your comedy is more important than my research?
Is his name Pete Lee?
His name is Pete Lee. And I was,
right.
and I said, I was like, I don't think your research is more important than my comedy, but I'd be willing to pay you, and this would be worth a lot to me. And at the time, like a lot to me was like, I was like, I'll give you $1,000. And he just was like, fuck off. And he wrote that to me, and I was like, okay.
All right.
And so I reached out to him again, trying to be reasonable. And then he was like, don't contact me again.
Jesus.
So I figured out, because I had started getting emails. So his email address was pete@petelee.com and mine was pete@petelee.net. And I started getting emails on accident to him about British research type stuff. So I was like a young feature act on the road, going and doing morning radio, with headliners at like Funny Bones and Improvs and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it'd be a funny prank to tell people, hey, if you're a lady or a guy and you wanted to send a kind of a sexy picture, send it to Pete@petelee.com. So I had all these crazy people from around the country sending all sorts of crazy stuff, and they would like BCC me on it, so I would like see what it was. And I was seeing some of these pictures going, oh my God, like those boobs, like those are unsheathed boobs, and those boobs shouldn't be seen by anyone. Like, it was some
except
like
for the Pete Lee researcher.
Yeah. So I get a message from him saying, hey, is there something, why are people messaging you all these kinds of crazy things? And why am I getting these messages on your behalf, and what's happening? And I was like, I don't know, man, but hey, if you want to sell me the domain, feel free. 'Cause I'll take it off your hands and you don't have to worry about these weird emails. And then I just kept saying it and pouring it on. And finally he was like, you're disgusting. And, there's nothing that he could do to me in American law, 'cause he doesn't even live here, and I don't know if it was illegal, but it was just like a fun prank that I was doing on him. So then there was
this have to wait till he dies or whatever, and then he doesn't renew it, and then it'll become available.
And then every year on the night that it can be renewed, he waits until that day, and I sit on it, and I try to get the PeteLee.com, and then he renews it. And at one point he gave it to this other comedian named Pete Lee down in Tampa, Florida, and this guy set up a Pete Lee comedy website, and he even made a video being like, yeah, I got this thing because the other Pete Lee hates that Pete Lee. And he was like, and I just emailed that guy, and I was like, hey man, I don't have any beef with you. That's cool that you got the website, but like, can I pay you for the website? And he said no, because the British guy still owns the rights to it, and he was just allowed to use it for like a year. But yeah, so you can go to PeteLee.net if you want to not go to PeteLee.com. Also, if you want a Snugglestorm t-shirt, that's my brand, Snugglestorm, you can go to snugglestorm.com. I did get snugglestorm.com.
Nice. Good job.
Yeah.
That wasn't in high demand. I get it.
No, yeah. There's people are like, a word he made up? What?
Awesome. Well, Pete, dude, it's such a good time hanging out with you. Great to chat and catch up, and it's been too long. So
Yeah, dude, this has been so much fun to hang out with you, Chuck. You're always
man.
the coolest.
Oh,
and
thanks, man. You too, man. You're the
yeah,
coolest.
yeah, and I'll see you. I'll see you at Virtual NACA Nationals 2021. Who knows when
Absolutely.
things are opening back up? Ah.
Dude, continued success for you, man. I can't wait to see you out on the road again. And everybody out there, if you need a comedian for anything, even if you need to book Pete Lee, you can do it through summitcomedy.com.
Yes,
so,
you can.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week. Pete, thank you very much.
Dude, thank you, Chuck.
We'll see you on the flip side, everybody.
Awesome.
Deuces.
Thank you, man. All right.